Hi, I'm Jules and I'm from Storytelling Schools, and I'm just going to show you how to get to some really good non-fiction writing. So this is a year 3 child. She would have been 7. I don't think she was 8 at this point. And she has written a fact file. And now it's a great fact file. It's about Vikings, which we were doing for a whole term. And we were doing them from mid-October all the way through to Christmas, to December. And she's written this on the 5th of December. So she knew quite a lot about Vikings by this point. But let's look at the writing and how we got to the point where she could write a fact file that was laid out like this. Okay, so first of all, you can see she's got certain headings down the side. And that's important because we were preparing her for that from way back in the beginning of October. So I'll just read you her fact file. This is the draft one. The real one went on the wall. It was beautiful. Would it surprise you to hear Vikings were the terror of the 7 seas that came from Scandinavia? They lived over 1,000 years ago. Actually, the youngest boy had no land. Vikings' raid ended in 1100. So there's quite a lot of information in there, and it's not perfect, but it's good. They had red and yellow hair and appearance. I do apologise. Appearance. They had red and yellow hair and braided beards. Viking clothes were made to be warm and cosy. People thought that Vikings wore horns in their helmet, but they didn't. Helmets were made out of metal and stone because it's important they don't hurt their heads in battle. Food. Their food was disgusting. They had difficult times in winter. They grew their food and hunted animals. They spit roasted or grilled their food. They ate with their fingers and knives. They didn't have forks, and they drank ale. Language, the Viking alphabet, and then she writes it down. In the Viking alphabet, there is no J or Q. They have done different letters, but some are very hard to write. If you want to know more, go to a book on Google, a museum, or go to Scandinavia. So that's her draft, her piece of writing that she's been able to do as a result of some prep work that we did before. So in order to look for the prep, we have to go back quite a long way. So first of all, we learned the fact file. So this fact file is based on the Jub Jub bird. So we teach them a fantasy, one that is not based in fact, a fact file all about a bird. And it starts off. Did you know the Jub Jub bird is the heaviest bird in the world? And so on. So it goes on, and it has a bit about the appearance. It has a bit about where they live. It has a little bit about the fact that they're endangered because people keep taking their claws to make necklaces. And the last bit is a warning. If you see any of these, please tell the police. So they learned this by heart, just as you would learn a story. Hear map, step, speak. And they could do it by the end of the first hour. And then after that, they were able to talk about the Jub Jub bird. The next phase, we did boxing up quite early on this one, because the structure of non-fiction text is what we're trying to learn here. So an introduction. Did you know the Jub Jub bird is the heaviest bird in the world? But we didn't do it. We didn't do it in our books. So this one is the next phase. So we've learnt the Jub Jub bird, we've understood the structure, and then we make up a whole new bird and we learn to say a whole new one. Now in this case we did dragons because we just done dragons instead of birds because that was what we wanted to do, but you could do anything. So they chose a Nadge dragon, and then we made up things about it. We made up what it looked like, we made up where it lived, and we made up why it was becoming extinct, and then we had an ending, which was a sort of, if you see something going on, tell the police. So it's similar to the one before. So we're teaching them this structure. There's a hook, there's an ending, and in between there are 3 unrelated facts that we need to give headings to, and then we write some facts about them. So we've learnt the structure of a fact file, or we're learning it. Then we move on and we start to do some shared writing of the Nadge dragon. So here's the first bit, here's the 3 sections, and then there's the sort of the last bit that they write. She clearly didn't get onto that, but that's okay. So we had a first go, and I would do some writing with them. So I would do a shared piece of writing with them, but first I prepare it. So the first thing is I would be at home or before the lesson, and I would write, okay, the Nudge Dragon. How shall I write about the Nudge Dragon? I think I'm going to put, have you ever wondered? And I prepare that in advance. Have you ever wondered what a Nudge Dragon is? And so I'd get that prepared, and then I might say, right, it's the deadliest dragon on earth. It's got a nasty sting, and if it bites you, your arms will drop off. So I start writing a version that the children can see, and at the same time, Mrs. whatever, my TA, is in the other end of the classroom, and she is writing down any spare words that I don't use when I write live in front of the children. So I've got something like, have you ever wondered what a Nudge Dragon is, in my head. I've got to get that across. I know that's the bit I'm writing, and I know that I'm writing the introduction, so I want to encourage people to read with the sentence I write, and I'm modelling it for the children. So I'm going to write something a bit like what I wrote before, but I'm going to take the children's ideas live. So I could write, have you ever wondered? Or I could write, did you ever think? Or I could write, have you ever seen? Or do you have a Nudge Dragon living under the stairs? And all of those kinds of things the children might generate in the classroom, I'm going to have my TA write down anything I don't use. So she's writing down all of the things they say, and I'm going to pick one. So I'm going to put, have you ever seen and I'm going to leave a gap, something Nudge Dragon. Now I want it to sound really interesting. A magical Nudge Dragon. Right, that makes it sound interesting, but I could have a scaly Nudge Dragon, I could have a rainbow coloured, or I could have a fluorescent, whatever word it is they come up with. Put all the spares over here on the other sheet, and we'll keep them in the classroom so that they can use those later. We collect all the vocabulary that we can, and then we also make a shared writing piece in front of them. So I'm writing live in front of them to give them ideas and show them how it's done. Have you ever seen a magical Nudge Dragon? Well, they are, and then I might get the children to describe, and we write a whole passage, a whole paragraph of introduction together, me writing it on the big chart, them giving me ideas, maybe on a whiteboard or maybe just out loud, and the extra person in the classroom is writing down as much of what is said as possible so that we've got all the spare ideas. Then we go, okay, it's your turn now, and they might have a go. So, did you ever wonder about the Nudge Dragon? It has the deadliest breath in the whole of Australia. That's a great start. Sounds really interesting. I want to read more. So they've done a good job. It's one sentence, but it's a really good sentence. It could be 3 or 4 sentences. And then we might share them around the classroom. What did you write? Oh, yeah, I want to read more about that. What did you write? Oh, yeah, I want to read more about that. What did you write? That's a question. Did you remember to put a question mark on it? That sort of thing. Live discussion of what they've written in the moment. And then we say, okay, so what's the next thing we've got to write? Well, we boxed it up, didn't we? So look at your boxing up. Here it is. We've done the introduction. Now we're going to do our first fact, but we're not going to call it fact 1. It's all about what they look like. So what should we write? Oh, appearance. Let's do that as a subheading. And then you shared write appearance. You prepare it in advance. You know what it is you're going to write. You show them how to write it live. And you get any spare words they come up with kept in the classroom on a big sheet of paper, because then you've got both sets for them to have as a resource. And they have a go, and they start to be more independent about writing their sentences. So at this point, you're letting them go a bit. So that's their second fact file that they've worked on. They're familiar now with the process. Now, we're going to do another one, but at this point they're going to start planning it. Look, you can see I can plan a fact file. So these children are going to do another animal, and they're going to make it up, and they're going to come up with what it looks like, where it lives, why it's extinct. So it's following exactly, but this time I'm hands off, and they are doing the planning for themselves. And they're going to choose some really good adjectives, because I'm going to make them and tell them to put the words in. And they're going to come up with some specific words so that they've got them to write it with. They're going to plan it by saying it to each other out loud. And then once they've done that, they can write it on their own this time. So I'm backing off gently. So have you heard about the fox? It is the fastest swimming animal in the future. It can swim all around the world in a day. That's a great introduction. Fox's teeth are spectacular at biting and sharp. It has fantastic fluffy tail. It also has very bright eyes. Foxes live in the Amazon jungle. It normally lives between 2 palm trees in a hole near the sea. In their holes, they make tunnels to party. So you can hear it's getting better and more fluent. And this is one that they've had a go at. They've spoken it. They've planned it. They've spoken it. And then they write it. Finally, we say, okay, we've done a lot of work on Vikings. Let's write about Vikings. So we're going to need an introduction about Vikings, what they looked like, maybe what they ate, and then something else. And at this point, I let them choose their third thing for themselves, and then we're going to need something to finish it off at the end. So we did some planning. So this is I can make notes. So we tried to structure it. We made some notes of things that might be useful. We talked about a trip they'd been on. We talked about all the facts they knew, and we tried to put those into sections. And I'm leading the lesson, but they are making the notes. Then they used those notes to do their boxing up of what it was they wanted to tell me in their Viking fact file. Now, the structure of the fact file is second nature to them now. They know that. They know how it works. They know what all the different bits of writing sound like because they've had a go at that. All they have to do now is put the facts in the right place and think about how they're going to say it to make it as exciting as possible. So this is the planning up, hook, appearance, food, language, and then the conclusion or the ending. And then lastly, that's when we gave them free rein and they went to write that piece. So you can see that that piece took a lot of work to get them to that point, and a lot of shared writing and a lot of gently supporting them. But if you need to do that in order to teach them how to write something, and then you gently let them go. And by spending quite some time, a whole sort of 2 lessons a week for a whole month, so sort of 8, 9 lessons before they got to the point where they were writing their final one, you get better writing. So there's quite a lot that goes on before you write. There's quite a lot of thinking about the structure of it and how you write that and the phrases that are used and collecting all your vocabulary together and all your examples of writing. And all of that can lead you into some nice writing at the end.